Okay, just a quick review on factoring. I'm not going to go through every example. I am going to just take you through one of the three types of factoring that we do. So the first one is just looking for a greatest common factor. So looking at my two terms, my greatest common factor here would be a 4 and then an x. So I'm going to factor out a 4x and I would be left with an x minus 3. So remember, when you're factoring out a common factor, the operation you are doing is division. Okay, moving on to factoring a trinomial of the form x squared plus bx plus c, working with an a value of 1. Okay, all we have to consider is the factors of the c value that multiply by each other to get c, but when you add them together, you're going to get your b value. Okay, so looking at this first example, what numbers multiply to 24, but when I add those two same numbers, they're going to add to the value of 11. Well, the factors of x squared would be x and x. The factors of 24 would be a plus 8 and a plus 3. So that is how you'd factor a trinomial with an a value of 1. Moving on to difference of squares. Well, a difference of squares is just like a trinomial, except for the fact that technically I have 0. I don't have a term in the middle, which would make 0 a's. So technically what we're looking at is what factors of negative 49 when added together will give me a 0, and those factors should be an a plus 7 and an a minus 7. So technically, when we're factoring a difference of squares, you're literally taking the square root of the first term, a and a, take the square root of the last term, 7 and 7. One factor will always be positive, one factor will always be a negative. And then finally, factoring trinomials of the form ax squared plus bx plus c, when we do have a value in front of the x squared value. The method I always relate to is our Lecky method. And going through question number 10 here, Lecky method is I'm going to take the factors of 6x squared, which would be, I'm going to start by writing a 2x and a 3x. The factors of 6 are also 2 and 3. And then we're doing a cross multiplication value. And then on the side, when we cross multiply these values, so 2x times 3 gives me a 6x. 3x times 2 is another 6x. I want to look to add these values, and it adds to a 12x. And this value needs to add to the same value as my middle term. So the combination I used here did not work. So this is why we call it a Lecky method. So I'm going to erase this. I'm going to maybe use these same numbers, but I'm going to try and switch the values and try it again. So 2x times 2 is a 4x. 3x times 3 is a 9x. If I add these together, I get a 13x. But I want this to be a negative 13x. So it worked out, but I want it to be a negative. So that just means I need both of these factors to be negative. So my factors would be 2x minus 3 and a 3x minus 2. And that is a review on factoring.